All right. For people who don't know me, I'm Nick. I'm a senior in kinesiology. I'm studying physical education here. I worked for the football team and the basketball team in the athletic training department for 2 years, and worked with other physical therapists in Athletico for a year. This is Pat Flavin.
Hey guys, I'm Pat Flavin. I'm a first-year grad student, College of Business on the MBA program. Went to undergrad here from 2011 through this past May, and played football for the past 5 years, offensive line, and got to know Nick through the team when he was working with the training staff, and great guy if you don't know already. So yeah, really excited to be here just to kind of share my thoughts on just faith and how to kind of the parallels between that and how you prepare your body, prepare your faith. So that being said, don't pay attention to my plate full of chicken tenders and potatoes. But yeah, thanks for having me. Really happy to be here.
And I'm Kelly. I don't really do a lot of professional sports. No, I play a lot of sports are fun, and I work out pretty regularly, but I just like being active and stuff. So I'm going to talk more about the feminine perspective of sports and spiritual life.
All right. So we'll start with, so it talks about body and soul. So kind of the framework around this is going to be respect for your body, and that your body is a temple. It's a temple of God. So we respect that, and we try to do the best and improve our bodies in any way we can. And that is nourished through sport and fitness. So kind of the first point I want to take you through is how our performance in these areas affects us in all the other areas. So performance in our spiritual life is going to affect us in the sports world or fitness area, vice versa of sports affecting us in spiritual. So you're having a bad day in your spiritual area, and it's kind of dragging you down. You're probably going to feel bad throughout your days, and it's going to affect you in all aspects of your life. And then same goes if you're having a bad day on the field. You might not feel like going to mass that day, or really praying hard or thanking God for the gifts that you still have. And so I think the performance area of that is really you got to take care of yourself in those areas. So if you're not taking care of yourself spiritually, you're going to be drained for the rest of your days. That goes with sleeping, eating right, and then working out as hard as you can. Pat, do you have any insight on how that kind of...
Yeah, when Nick mentioned the body as a temple, it just kind of brought to mind just an experience I had when I was in high school. So at the end of my high school season, I played in this high school game that brought together high school players from all across the country who were playing at different colleges, and it was kind of like a game where everybody got to play in. And throughout the week, they had different events, and it wasn't through like a spiritual organization or anything, but they had a Bible study the day before the game. And I went to a Catholic high school, so that was pretty natural for me. We'd always go to mass before games, and we actually do that here as well, which Father Luke says. So that we had a Bible study, and I didn't know any of these guys. These were guys from all around the country. So it was pretty well attended. There was probably like 30 or so guys there, all high school seniors. But I remember this topic was brought up, and there was a guy, he was a wide receiver, went to University of Georgia. He plays for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Chris Conley, if any of you guys have him on your fantasy team, pretty good. But he was really spiritual guy, really centered, really just a solid guy all around. I never knew him, so this made a big impression on me. He was also one of the most highly ranked receivers coming out of high school, so it was like, this was pretty impressive to see. And he mentioned this was something that he thought about daily when he prepared for games and practice, but also just in his life. And he mentioned the parallels between, what he puts into his body and how he treats his body. And that went for everything from getting to bed at a reasonable hour and what you eat to just what you do on the weekends, like not abusing alcohol or drugs, or, doing different things that might hurt your body in the long run. And he said it was really beneficial for him to see tangible results because he was such a great athlete. He said he attributed the discipline he was able to develop from this body as a temple principle to his success in the field. And that was something that never really crossed my mind. How could something from the Bible or a certain lifestyle choice that seemed unrelated to football actually have that dramatic of an effect on you? But he was a living testament to it, and still is today, obviously, playing in the NFL. So just what Nick mentioned, that was something that I really think is true, that this isn't just something that affects one area of your life. It's really something that if you excel in this area, it can benefit every aspect of your life. And it definitely, like anything else, definitely takes work. But I think once you start to see the results, it's just that much easier to be able to kind of abide by.
Yeah. So then so we want to kind of talk about some certain virtues. We're going to go through pride, confidence, a little bit of modesty, more about vanity for guys, humility, and then a little bit touching on kind of awareness and self-giving through in sports and fitness. But first, just going to talk about a couple points that none of this, you can't improve in your spiritual life, and you can't improve on the sports field if you don't face yourself every day. You know, it's so easy for us to get caught up in comparing ourselves to the guy next to us or someone else on the field or someone else in the chapel. And that's just going to bring you down. If you can get over that hump of realizing that you're not, it's not a battle between you and this other person, it's a battle between you and yourself, and God is how you're going to prove in your life, then you're going to make extraordinary gains there. And I'm sure Pat has something maybe to tell about that. If you do, I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think from a pride perspective, like that's something that like I have really come to learn a lot about. Just through playing football, like I think being prideful is if in the right way one of the best things that you can do, because it really forces you to be the best version of yourself, and it makes you competitive. And there are always opportunities, whether it's on the field or in the weight room. I mean, Father Luke, I don't know if you guys know this, is like down in the weight room at 7 a.m. watching us work out, and I'm sure you can speak to this too, because like guys get after it. I mean, it is a competition at all times, and you always want to be benching more than the guy next to you, or you want to be putting on more weight in the squat than the guy next to you or the guy in your position group, because it's a pride thing. You want to be kind of that alpha down there, and it definitely brings out competitive juices, and I think that's a good thing. But when you let that get in the way of the greater goal, I think is when it becomes a problem. And I think that's when striking that perfect balance between being prideful but also being modest is really like what is something to shoot for, because I think pride internally is something that is healthy, but when you let that get the better of your emotions, it can really damage yourself and your relationships. And one quote that I always try to remember or keep in mind, especially when there's something really competitive or you just accomplished something that you're really proud of, is that I don't even know who said this, I heard it in a movie, but it was that there's no nobility in being superior to your former man, but there's a lot of nobility in being superior to your former self. So I think being able to measure where you are now as opposed to where you've been is how you can use pride to your advantage. But when you kind of use it to measure your accomplishments against others is when you kind of get into a dangerous area. So I don't know, that's just something, I think when you hear pride, you're automatically like put on the brakes. It's like a dirty word, but I think in an athletic sense, and definitely in motivating yourself to be the best you can be, you have to have pride. You have to really want to be the best person you can be. But you have to use that for your own motivation, not to measure yourself against others, is really my perspective of it.
And this, going off of kind of how Pat's saying that you have this pride in yourself, also goes into how we can be humble and confident as well in ourselves as well. When you take that pride in the right way, you have to be proud of what God has given you, these skills. And also you have to be proud in the fact that you're doing your best in their spiritual life to attain that goal, that higher goal. It's not just always about you. It's about it's a much bigger picture. So having that confidence in sports as well comes from God. That's where your confidence is coming from. It's from God's love, and understanding that that's where your confidence is coming from is key to improving yourself in each area of your life. Because it's, again, going back to, it's so easy to get caught up in comparing yourself or treating yourself as like you're just not good enough to get to this point, because you're always going to have some type of hurdle in life that you're going to need to overcome, and that's going to come through the confidence that you have in God, that you trust Him enough to help you through this moment. in time or in the field in the case.
Yeah, and I think confidence comes from preparation. Like I think everybody finds confidence in their motivation in different areas, but for me, it's how well you prepare. I mean, I think everybody's been in that situation where you have to give like a speech in class, and you're wondering how is this going to go. You know, public speaking definitely not my strong suit. But when you're able to prepare, it's almost like it's no big deal. You know what you have to say. You know it backwards and forwards. You've been there before. To draw it to a football example, when we do 2-minute drill, the last part of practice, like that's a high pressure situation. There's a lot on the line. Time is, the clock is not in your favor, and you have to perform in the moment. But when you've done it once, it makes the second time a lot easier. When you've done it twice, you feel more and more comfortable the more you succeed. So I think just having those small victories and disciplining yourself and disciplining your body gives you that much more confidence to move forward. To know I've done this, like I've done something I didn't think I could do, and I think that's a way that you kind of build your own internal confidence by just knowing. I've stacked up these small victories, and ultimately it leads up to the bigger one down the road.
And it goes into the next point of success in any area of life is going to help you build that confidence in the rest of your area. So having that success on the field is going to make you feel better about yourself and more confident to make that step to make another goal that's going higher and higher towards this higher goal. Same with your spiritual life. You can't just set these kind of unrealistic goals for yourself and then try and attain them. You're gonna fall short a little bit. But when you set small, realistic goals coming up to these things, you're gonna not only build your confidence in that, and you're gonna become stronger and stronger in those areas, and eventually reach that higher goal that you've set.
And can I just add one point to that? Like I think, in my experience, like those small victories that Nick talked about, I think that can come from any part of your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be your spiritual life. It can be, maybe you're just not getting enough sleep at night and you really want to discipline yourself. I'm going to get the right amount of sleep. I'm not going to stay up and watch, this show on Netflix or something. Like that's a small victory that you can use, and enough of those will ultimately help you. Maybe that will help me be more disciplined in whatever Lenten sacrifice I'm doing, or like when that big moment comes about, you're going to be prepared for that. There's a quote I really like from Vince Lombardi, arguably the greatest coach in football history, that a championship is just a series of small victories. And that's not, and he didn't mean games. He meant winning reps in practice. He meant doing the right thing off the field. He meant taking care of your body. Like that's just, what a championship is just a bunch of small victories strung together. So, I don't mean to but that's just one that came to mind.
Goes into then one of the other last points here is this sense of kind of sacrifice and awareness where you are in life and where you are in your spiritual life or on the field. Sacrifice on the field, team players. What are you going to do to help the team win? There's no this is kind of this is a little inappropriate, but it's kind of funny. There's no I in team. The only I you see is in the middle of the A hole. If you draw the A, there's an I there. Okay, no one really gets that.
Oh, it's slanted.
It's a little slanted, but if you draw it out, if it was in the color formation.
It's a cute triangle.
Yeah, it's a cute little triangle.
Right.
But it's there. I think I needed a picture for that one.
That should be on a poster.
It should be on a poster. Yeah. No one ever gets my jokes. I'm used to this. It's okay. Well, yeah. So going back to the point at hand, besides my bad jokes, but sacrifice yourself for the greater good. What can you give for your teammate? It's not all about you. By giving yourself to others, by helping others, helping this greater for the greater good, you're going to be helping yourself. You're gonna grow that much more. So the last play, you don't always have to have the ball in the hands. You don't always have to be making the big play. The big plays come from the small things too. And I would completely argue that all the smaller things are much bigger than the bigger things. Basketball, for instance, making the winning shot. That's an awesome feeling. It's great. It's awesome. But if you can help steal the ball or make that great block or something, that's that's much better than you created that moment. That's a lot better than anything of taking the last winning shot there, or in football, giving examples for.
Yeah, I think from like a spiritual journey perspective, it might be like strange to think of your spiritual life as like a team game. I mean, I think a lot of it is between you and God, but then I think also it is very much a team game because of how you can grow with each other. Like I think you can only take yourself so far if you're only between you and God. Like because you only have your own ideas about things. Like you can't think beyond what your own capacity is because you're only one person. But when you allow other people into your life to influence your thinking and to offer new perspectives on what it means to, be a Catholic or what it means to follow God, I think that's how you ultimately grow as a Catholic in groups, and that is directly correlated to the team game aspect, because you really have to put yourself out there and kind of be an advocate for people, and you can't always do things for your own benefit, but you have to share with other people your thoughts and your perspectives to help them grow, and in the process you grow as well. So I think you can only take yourself so far if you're isolated in your relationship with God. You have to use others to help you grow, and in the process you'll grow as well, because it's just the reality of it, I think.
Yeah, and then one of our last points that we wanted to bring up was failures. How do we build ourselves back up from our failures? So it's not about how you fall down, it's about how you get back up. That's true in your spiritual life, and it's true on the field. One day is going to be a bad day. You can live in the past. You can live in your sins, or you can get back from that. Go to confession, go to mass, talk to somebody if you need to talk to somebody. And how are you going to improve? How are you going to get better and move on from that? How are you going to stop living in the past and keep your head down, or are you going to put your head back up and think about what's going on in the present and what you need to do in the future, especially on the field? You miss a shot, you made a bad play, missed a block. You're going to hang your head for 5 minutes and let the team suffer, or let yourself suffer, or are you going to get back in there and try again and do your best? You can always make an excuse. There's an excuse for everything. In spiritual life, why you didn't go to this, why you didn't do this, and same on the field, there's always an excuse. If you really want to find one, they're out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think as it relates to failures and excuses, I think like one thing that's pivotal in you always hear about learning from mistakes, and that's a lot easier said than done. Like, I'll be the first one to say that. But I think like the only way that you can actually do that, whether it be in sports or in your spiritual life or in any aspect of your life, is to actually be honest with yourself. And you hear the cliche, like, look in the mirror. Like, that doesn't, actually physically doing that doesn't always work. But like actually being honest with yourself and knowing why did I make that mistake is when I think you actually begin to grow. Like, there was a point in my life really not too long ago where, like, and some of you guys might be able to relate to this, like, I'd been going to confession, but then I'd realized, like, I've been giving the same confession for basically the last, 10 years. Like, there's always a few key points I hit on, and then that's it. And, like, yeah, is some of it relevant at times? Definitely. But I think when you're actually honest to yourself and saying, where am I actually struggling in my life to grow closer to God, like, that's when you can begin to make meaningful steps to kind of remedy those situations. Because until you realize it, you don't actually get to make steps to repair it. So, I mean, Nick talked about excuses, like football, the ultimate team game. I mean, especially on offense, we always would joke, like, defense, those guys can get away with, like, not being as disciplined. 10 guys can do the wrong thing, and there could be a great pass rusher, and he gets to the quarterback, and he bails everybody out. On offense, like, you really have to, and I play offensive line, by the way, like, you really have to, everybody has to do their job, all 11 guys at the same time. Otherwise, one breakdown, and that chain in the link just breaks, and the entire play is a bust. So, like, there's a lot of reasons to say, like, I did my job, the team wasn't successful because of some other guy, like, oh, I'm playing tackle, I couldn't hear the quarterback in the snap count, the center didn't snap the ball fast enough, the guard, he didn't make the right call, the defensive end, he might have been offsides. Like, there are so many things so many variables that get in the way of you actually doing your job. I think when you can put all that aside and say, like, are there going to be things outside of your control? Definitely. But when you do what you can control and not worry about what the mistakes other people are making, that's when you can actually begin to grow. And when it is your fault, I think you have to be honest with yourself and say, I made this mistake because, and actually pinpoint why that is. And then just continue to really just give it your best shot. Like you're not going to make a mistake on one play and all of a sudden use perfect technique on the next and lock down the defensive end. That's just like you might get lucky, but it's gradual. You have to do it with practice, and it's a habit almost. I think when it comes to really moving away from those sins that we find ourselves constantly confession, it's making steps to correct that habit where it might be instinctual at first. You take a moment and say, wait, slow down and just think about what you're doing, because you're going to find yourself in the same position you were when you made the last confession. You're going to be doing this all over again. So I think breaking that habit by just taking a step and evaluating your actions goes a long way in actually, improving in that area of your life.
Yeah, and then so to wrap up this, our kind of side of this is a good quote from Pope Pius XII about sports. There's a copy if you want a copy here afterwards, but I'm going to read it. I think it's a really great quote. Some of it is a little, if you want to reflect on it and see the words of it, definitely get it. So, sport, properly directed, develops character, makes a man courageous, a generous loser, and a gracious victor. It refines the senses, gives intellectual penetration, and steels the will to endurance. It is not merely a physical development then. Sport, rightly understood, is an occupation of the whole man, and while perfecting the body as an instrument of the mind, it also makes the mind itself a more refined instrument for the search and communication of truth, and it helps man to achieve that end to which all others must be subservient, the service and praise of his Creator. So that's kind of going to wrap up, I think, what we were all talking about here. But now we're going to let Kelly talk a little bit more about the women's side and perspective of sports and fitness.
Yeah. Do you have anything else before I start?
No, just keep in mind that the overarching theme of the respect for our bodies and that our body is a temple.
All right. Well, after following up, that will be hard. But so basically, I want to talk more about kind of body and soul, especially from a woman's perspective, and how that relates more to femininity. The last talk, it was all girls, so it's a little different now that it's mostly guys, but we can all learn from it. So the first thing I kind of thought of was, on the college campus, I feel like with girls, and guys too maybe, there's 4 attitudes towards fitness. One, the people who are in a regular workout routine and go almost every day, or people who try to go and maybe can't make it all the time, people who are interested but just go if their friend asks them, or people who don't really go at all. And I think there's this other joke that I was gonna go work out, but then I started watching Netflix for 3 hours and I ran out of time, and so then we don't go. But anytime that we choose to exercise or engage in physical activity really opens the door to a lot of personal growth that you maybe didn't realize was possible. And I think these two did a great job of explaining how exercise and sports really do allow you to grow as a person, and maybe we don't always think about how it relates to our spiritual life. And I know with me, it's really helped having exercise routines, has helped me develop more of a spiritual routine. I know throughout my life I grew up playing sports and kind of going to Sunday Mass, but then in high school I started getting more involved in the exercise routine and getting more involved with church and youth group kind of at the same time. And I think this is because when we have the desire to grow close to God, and when we have that desire to have a healthy body, God will bless that and help you to grow together in both of those ways. And that kind of goes with the perseverance of, with me, I know it's easier for me to kind of, with exercise, to push myself to run the extra mile or to go when I don't feel like it. And knowing that I can develop those traits there helps me, when in prayer life, it's one of those days where you don't want to pray or you don't feel like going to Mass, knowing that, I know I can do this because I've established to myself previously that I'm capable of doing these things even when I don't want to, because I have this perseverance established. And that also carries over to school and really every aspect of your life. And I think fitness is a great place to start with that. But in terms for women, I think that with fitness we face two really hard sides from society. On one hand, there's culture kind of telling us have the perfect body and show it off. And on the other hand, I feel like there's this underlying idea that sports are kind of manly, and that maybe girls who play sports or work out are more not as girly as other girls or something. And I think culture's way of remedying the situation is often to express femininity in how we dress at the gym. You know, those like crazy neon tight like spandex pants are like all in style, and a lot of people wear like just tight clothing and sports bras and spandex and stuff. But if we're acknowledging that we're trying to grow to be the women, I think it's men that God is calling us to be, I think there's a better way to express that femininity and to grow in that, and not in the way we dress. And that goes back to kind of the idea of modesty. Sorry, I'm really nasally. And dress and attitude. Taking a step back and saying, okay, why am I here? Why am I choosing to be fit? Is it for so I can show off? Is it to, is it just selfish reasons, or is it because I'm trying to grow into this person and trying to respect the temple of the Holy Spirit that my body is, and just keeping that in check. But when thinking of how do we express femininity when we're exercising, I was trying to brainstorm, and then just kind of thinking, turning to Mary when we're looking for a role model for women. And I was picturing, so back in the day, they didn't really have gyms. People didn't really go for runs, as far as I know. Picture, most of Mary's exercise is walking around. But, what if she was here yesterday on the cold, 1 degree day when it's snowing, and she wanted to stay active, and she heads over to the Ark. What would Mary do at the Ark? And so I kind of picture her like walking in and like smiling at people, and maybe getting on the elliptical and doing her thing, pushing herself, and then afterwards going to get like the wipe to clean it down, and just doing it like gently and smiling at people, like if you can kind of picture this. And she's doing it with like compassion and grace and patience. And in the gym, I think there's often the loud music and people like grunting and flexing and staring at themselves, and
there are mirrors there.
It's true, and so it's hard to have that more like gentle attitude when especially with guys. I think the man cave or the football gym, it's a hard place to express more of like a gentleness and patience. It's a lot easier to get caught up in the moment and caught up in ourselves. And so it's important to take a step back and think, how can I take this moment to embrace the maybe call to gentleness and the respect that God may be calling us to. And then another way to grow closer to God with exercise, I found a great way is just spending time outdoors. I know the weather is not great now, but when it is nice outside, I think that really helps develop awe for the Lord. We recently moved to Michigan, and we're along the lake, and going for runs along there is just so humbling, to see that nature that God has given us and to realize how small we are. And so I think that when it's nice outside, going for bike rides, going for runs, going for walks outdoors is another really great way to grow close to Him in that sense. And also for both men and women in terms of the whole body, mind, and soul as one, in regards to sports in general. And they were kind of talking about this earlier. There's so many little tests of characters, and sports present a lot of ways to show who your true self is. If you're playing poorly or messing up, or the referee's not going your way, how do you handle that? I know it's fun to like get frustrated and yell and stuff and maybe swear. I'm just kidding. I'm just calling out the guys. But so how do we, do you choose to, work harder at it and figure out what's going wrong, and just how do you handle yourself? What true character are you going to let yourself show? And not every day is going to be perfect, not every day is going to be great, but just making the effort, I think, is a huge, just counts so much. And with sports also, we're human, we crave companionship, we crave love and to be loved, and teams present such great opportunities for friendship. I know with girls, like a lot of times, I struggle with finding groups that aren't, full of like gossip or that sort of thing, and with teams, you just work together and grow in that sort of way, and it's just this really beautiful way of getting to meet new people without necessarily having to sit down and just, not that sitting and talking is bad, but it's just a good way to spice things up as well. So basically just the positives of exercise to the overall, how it affects the rest of your life. Just gives energy, a great way to recharge, gives you the endorphins. And with me, it's the alone time I really need to recharge, and that by having that time, I will be so much more able to be present with everybody else throughout the day and to be able to listen to how God is calling me to work through Him in that way because of that time spent keeping our temples of the Holy Spirit healthy. So I think, again, back to what you guys were saying, just the most important thing is to keep our motives in check as well, knowing that we're here because we want to serve God, that we want to praise Him by keeping our bodies healthy. And there's so many ways to do that. You just have to find what you enjoy doing, whether it's sports or weights or cardio or football or basketball or whatever. And just knowing that by choosing that, we're all opening the door to so many opportunities for personal growth, and that we can blossom into the people that God is calling us to be. Anything else?
Yeah, no, just to reiterate kind of like what is, how do you want people to see you, in any aspect of life. And that sports is gonna, I just think sports and exercise, it's a test. Every time you're out on the field, it's a test. And I think a great way to test yourself and to see where you are with your spirituality is and how well you've been improving is to go out there and push yourselves on the field or in the gym, because you're gonna find a lot more about yourself through that and see how you've grown spiritually. Because if you're improving spiritually, you're gonna see the difference when you're out there on the field and the way you act, especially in the gym as well. How well you've improved just in your mind and body. So I just keep that in mind as you go through that.
Yeah, I mean, one theme that I was just thinking about when listening to that was like mental toughness, and it's like a concept we throw around constantly on the team. It's like being mentally tough when you're hitting the wall and you don't feel you can keep going. I think like working out, exercising, playing sports is like the perfect area to develop that. And it's not just something you can use in sports and working out. It carries over to every aspect of your life. But I don't know, I was just thinking about like one of our workouts, one of like the workouts where it's like a grinded out, really hard workout. There's a sign right above the door in the weight room before you go in with a phrase that the former strength coach Lou Hernandez coined. It just says, "Get your mind right." And that basically means like you have to be in the right mindset to be able to do what the coaches are asking of you that day. And you can't just go up nonchalantly and do it. Like you actually have to put effort. You have to like prepare for it in the right way. That means stretching, being flexible, and then actually like getting in a state of mind where you're like a little bit crazy. So like I think like this during the winter workouts these last couple of years, I would be in a group with a few other offensive linemen, and like there are some pretty crazy guys in that group. So like we would like anytime, let's say it's at the last set of 5 on the bench press, 5th set of 5, your arms are dead, you got the rest of the workout to go, and you see just a ridiculous amount of weight on the bar, and you have to get it up for 5, and you're like, how the heck am I going to do this? So like I think it takes everybody in the group. Like there would be some guys in the group who would like smack each other, or like you're really doing whatever you can to get yourself like fired up to get this weight up. And I think you actually have to get in that mindset, because let's be honest, like that's something you're uncomfortable doing. You're like, I don't want to get 4 and then at the last one like fall on my chest. Like that's kind of embarrassing, going back to the pride thing. But like you need to be in a different state of mind to be able to do that. I think when you're taking a great leap forward in your spiritual life, you have to be in a similar state of mind. Like you have to actually know what you have to do, know how to do it, and why you're doing it, and then just go out and do it. Like don't think twice, don't second guess yourself. Just like have a that Friday Night Lights quote. What is it? Clear eyes, full hearts can't lose. Like that kind of relates to this. Like you really have to, before you're about to make a big decision to move forward in your spiritual life, something that you're uncomfortable doing. Maybe it's going to mass, maybe it's going to confession, giving like a legitimately honest confession. Like you actually have to get your mind right and know, like just clear your head and know why I'm doing this, how to do it, and what's going to come out of it. And I think that's just a way that working out can help you get to that point.
Yeah, so that kind of wraps it up. Any questions later on?